Welcome to FitBody Lifestyle, the show where we dive deep into the world of fitness, health, business, relationships, and the art of living a balanced life. I'm Jami.
And I'm Greg, and we're here to give you the benefit of our experiences in the fitness and bodybuilding industry, the corporate world, running a business, personal development, and building healthy relationships.
Whether you're sweating it out in the gym, hustling in your business, or seeking balance in your everyday life, you're in the right place.
So lace up those sneakers and grab that water bottle, and let's get ready to transform our minds, our bodies, and our lives.
Welcome to FitBody Lifestyle, and we have another amazing episode. We have a lovely guest here with us, Miss Angela White. We're so happy to have you back in the studio again today. There's so many things that we want to talk to you about, but first, introduce yourself for the listeners.
Yeah, so my name is Angela White, and I am the manager of FitBody Fusion. So I am Jami's right hand in managing this amazing
She's actually
company.
my boss.
Yeah, kind of. She's the bossy one. Anyways.
Well, would you like an objective perspective? No, let's just move on.
Yeah. But yeah, so like I said, I manage FitBody Fusion. I am a mother. I am an IFBB pro. And yeah, that's
our adopted daughter.
Absolutely. And I'm just super blessed, super honored to be here. And I'm excited to share with you guys all our topic today, something that I'm extremely passionate about. So
yes, absolutely. And I've watched you on your journey, gosh, for the last 10 years, growing so much. I mean, growing in terms of, your business acumen, in terms of, obviously you as a mother, because I know that's number one, growing as an athlete and so much as a coach and in so many different areas. And this is one of the biggest areas I've seen your growth in, and it's in your relationship with food and your relationship with your body in regards to food and things like that. So I feel like this is something so many people can relate to, and I'm really excited to delve into this so that you can talk a little bit about what you've discovered, the tools that you've used, what you're helping other people to master. So I'm super excited about this episode.
And before we get to that topic of your relationship with food.
I'm always jumping the gun.
I know you always want to. I got to just pull you back, and then I get chided for it, which is fine.
You like it?
I probably do.
Well,
I've stuck around, right? I do like it. So, Angela, what's your check-in word for this conversation?
My check-in word for this conversation is honestly inspired. I'm inspired by myself, and I'm inspired by the women that I'm able to help and to impact, the lives that I'm able to change by changing our relationship with food. So I'm inspired.
Well, then let's start at the top line. How do you define your relationship with food?
So, I can say what it's not. It's not, I love chocolate cake so much I want to marry it. It's not that. But your relationship with food is, how do you relate to food? What is the purpose of food in your life? What power does food hold over you or doesn't hold over you in your life? The meaning you place on food. In relation to those around you. So your relationship with food is truly just the meaning food has to you in your life and the importance that it has to you in your life.
I was reading through your notes on this topic, and the one thought that I had about your relationship with food is that I could substitute in your relationship with others into your relationship with food. And that analogy really became very real to me about the questions that you ask about your food could apply to your relationships with others as well.
Absolutely. And something that I, whenever in my journey, when I realize, whoa, Angela, you have an issue here. You have a problem here when it comes to food, is when food began to have complete power over me, complete power over my choices, over the things that I did in my daily life. It was no longer about spending time with people out at dinner. It was about what's on the menu. What can I get? I was looking at the appetizer, waiting, okay, am I going to be the first one to take a bite? Like I zoned out any other actions, any other talk that was going on because I was so focused on the food. Same thing, with being a mother. I will be the first to admit that there was many times when my son was crying, all I could think about is like, oh my God, I can't wait for him to stop crying so I can go into the kitchen and eat because I just wanted to feel better, But yeah, food can have just such a complete power over you, but it could also just be something that is a tool in your life, you know. And now that I'm on the other side, I realize that one, nothing was wrong with me. You know, this relationship with food was developed due to many different things, which I'm sure we'll discuss. But that it was something that I had choice over, and that I can choose differently. I can choose to eat to live instead of living to eat, and that's when things clicked.
I can so much relate to you on this. And I do feel like, both inside of the bodybuilding community and outside of the bodybuilding community. It's definitely something I see prevalent, and something that definitely was an aha moment for me, very similar to what you're describing. And I do think a lot of people that aren't in the bodybuilding world struggle with the same kind of things. And, where does it stem from could be different from each person. But would you kind of give us a little bit of background of where you think that it came from?
Yep, absolutely. So there are many reasons why we have this urge to eat. And when I'm talking about urge to eat, I am referring to binge eating. Now, when it comes to binge eating, I can kind of give the definition. There's different definitions. So the clinical definition is eating a large amount of food, basically in private, followed by a feeling of guilt. Now, according to the National Eating Disorder Association website, this has to occur, I believe it is 1 to 3 times per week. However, as you know, if you are someone who suffered with binge eating, and it doesn't have to be the clinical diagnosis of binge eating, I'm just saying in terms of the behaviors of consuming a large amount of food in a short amount of time, followed by a feeling of guilt, and that is relative to the person, but that would be considered binge eating. Now, binge eating is simply, or what triggers binge eating is simply an urge. You get this urge to eat, or you get this urge to not stop eating after you've already started to eat. So the urge can come before you eat or while you're eating. And this urge is simply just a thought that is telling your mind, telling your body to keep eating, to eat more, more, more. Now, this urge has been developed like any other habit. It has been given into. So if there was ever a time where you were sad, and you use food to cope, which, there's many coping mechanisms, and sometimes we do use food to cope. But because you've given into that urge, to that thought, you chose to eat, you now lit up your brain, the pleasure, the reward system, that this is how I feel better. This is how I get out of pain, by seeking food to feel better. Even if you know it only lasts seconds, your brain doesn't know that. Your brain just knows, what did I do last time I was sad? Now, also this urge to eat is also a survival mechanism of your body. When you are in a calorie deficit, whether you are somebody training for a bodybuilding competition, you're in a calorie deficit, or you're just the average mom who is go, 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 doesn't eat until 1, 2, 3 p.m., maybe doesn't even eat till she gets home. Again, her brain is telling her, eat, 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 because you haven't fed me all day long. So it's not just because you dieted. There's many reasons, but you simply get this thought to eat, and that's what triggers the binge eating. So again, it's dieting, whether it's conscious or unconscious. It also can be due to placing food restrictions, so food rules, so labeling things as good or bad, or I can't have carbs, I can't eat after 7, whatever the case is. Or even with me being vegan, by labeling myself as vegan, if I ever accidentally consume something that's not vegan, I now have this guilt and this shame, which again, those negative thoughts need to be healed. How do I heal these negative thoughts, which are negative emotions? I eat. So it's all linked together, and that's what creates, binge eating, overeating, is simply that thought, that urge in your mind.
Yeah, what's interesting that occurred to me as you were talking is how we cultivate this as parents and had it cultivated as children. Because I was as you're talking, my mind is going back to myself as a child, and I got a boo-boo, I fell down. Oh, let's go get some ice cream. Yes. Or, we're celebrating, my team won, we're going to go eat XYZ, and that already at that very young age. And it's not, obviously, our parents are just wanting to, do something nice for us. And in that, and I think that's something to consider as parents as well, creating that connection of food as a solution to make us feel better or to celebrate, where I do feel like, we've cultivated this as a society. Everything's got food attached. So now we have to consciously then start to go, okay, I'm going to be present and enjoy the company at this holiday rather than going in, like you said, with just the sole focus on what am I going to eat and missing the whole point.
Absolutely. And so often do we say, oh, let's go out to eat. No. Let's go out together and spend some time together. Oh, cool. There's food. Great. And that's also a common misconception. Food can be pleasurable. You should enjoy your food. It's not about just, oh, I do have to just eat to live, or, whatnot. You can actually enjoy food too. That's okay. We're not here to just be miserable, but it's going back to knowing that food is not going to have power over you. That food is always going to be there. But those people that you're sitting with at the table, they're not. They need to be the center of attention, and in the beginning of your healing journey, it's something you have to consciously practice. You have to consciously choose and practice to be present with those around you. And that includes looking them in the eyes, starting the conversations. There is, I don't like to say use the word willpower because there's so much that's so far beyond just like, oh, having willpower. But in this sense, you do have to have a little bit of the willpower to make them the priority. And that in turn will help lessen those urges to eat. Because at the end of the day, we just want to weaken that thought, that impulse. And by doing so, that's something as simple as just doing your best to not think about the food and think about those around you. So, yeah. And the same thing, like going back to, as parents, one thing I don't do and I will not do is force my son to finish the food on his plate. If he's done, he's done. If he had one bite, he had one bite. Now I get it. Like we want our children to eat food before they go get sweets. Like, yes, I do too. I want him to prioritize his protein. But I will never force him to finish his food just because I made it, just because it's on his plate. He knows that he can stop when he's full. If he doesn't want to eat, he doesn't have to eat. That's the same thing with us. We forced ourselves to eat all the food on our plate because we had this Last Supper mentality that tomorrow we're going to start again. Tomorrow we're not going to have the cookies no more. Mm-hmm. We're not going to have, the food that we have, even if it's healthy food, but we have to finish it all. Mm-hmm. No, you don't.
Our generation was like, how could you not finish your food? There's starving children in whatever part of the world during that, you know what I mean? And then placing that guilt and shame on not eating the food and then not even realizing that those old records are still playing later in life. Yep. It's just interesting how that happens.
I'm laughing because when you say that, I'm thinking of the Pink Floyd song of how can you have any meat, or how can you have any pudding if you haven't finished your meat? And I don't know why that came up because we've been talking about song lyrics, but Angela, as we're talking about this, the one, we have talked about the scarcity mindset versus the abundance mindset. And, as I was again reading through your notes and just our discussions privately, I have thought a lot about the application of that with the relationship with food and the thought process that, and it's just a lot of what you described about with your son is that if you don't think you're ever going to get this, then it's going to drive a behavior that when I do get this, I must consume it and I must consume as much of it as I possibly can. So maybe get us. What was the trigger for you that finally? And I hate that word trigger. I'm sorry. I gotta remove that from my lexicon. What was the event, or what was the sequence of events that ultimately got you to this focus on your relationship with food?
Honestly, it was just truly understanding that in order to stop binge eating, it was a choice, and there's we can talk about the hormone impacts, the the mental side of things, all of these other things, the health sides, but I truly didn't understand that I had control. All I had to simply do was make a choice to not consume the food, and then I would be better. Now, of course, that's easier said than done. When you are in the thick of it, when you have the cookies right in front of you, the peanut butter jar, you don't feel in control. You genuinely feel hijacked. Food no longer even has flavor. You're just doing what you repeatedly have done because it's so ingrained in you. Your body doesn't know that it can stop. That's not its normal. But the more that I learned that it was simply a choice, and the steps to healing, that's when it started to click. That's when it really started to click. The first time I was like, you know what? I don't want to eat all these cookies because I want them tomorrow too. And I didn't eat them. I could not believe that I went to bed feeling comfortable, physically comfortable, because I wasn't so stuffed. I didn't wake up puffy the next day. I felt how good it felt to not give in, and that just made me want even greater freedom. At that point, I still thought about food every second of the day. I still had the urges, but I had a taste of what it felt like to be free.
That positive reinforcement. And it's so funny that I don't know if it's your influence on me all the time or your influence today, but when I was writing my notes, I wrote down compulsion versus choice, and identifying that ability to identify the compulsion, but then make the choice.
Exactly. And a lot of times, whenever we say we're going to give in, and the way to kind of control the binges, or to begin to control the binges, is simply like any other habit. You want to lower that desire for it. Like somebody who smokes cigarettes, they really want to lower that desire to need a cigarette. Same thing, we want to lower the desire to want the food. And you can do this a number of ways. Typically, there's a few things. There's some physical movements you can do. There's some breath work techniques, which I can go over. But in short, you want to, between that time you get that urge and you either give in to the food or you don't, you want that to extend that time as long as possible. Maybe the first time it's only a couple minutes. Maybe you're like, oh my God, I need to eat. And you're like, okay, I don't know if I want to eat. I don't know if I want to eat. And you wait 5 minutes, okay? Typically, you would wait 30 seconds, but you waited 5 minutes. That's going to weaken it the next time. And over time, you extend that period, and there's going to be times where you don't even give in. What I like to say is set a timer for 5 to 10 minutes. Probably the first few times, set it for 5, and go do something. I don't care if you're just walking in circles around your island in your kitchen, or you are walking up and down your stairs, or you're doing, a breathwork technique where you just breathe in and out really quickly, or say you get on YouTube and you're just watching a video. It doesn't matter what you're doing, but the thing that you're doing is you are removing that thought from your head, even if it is just temporarily. But the goal is to remove the thought for as long as you can. And then, then when your timer goes off, do I really want that food? You might. That's okay. If you do, get it. If you still want the food, you need to have it, because if you don't, it goes back to that restriction. You're going back to telling yourself, I cannot have this. But maybe you won't want the food. Or maybe you're like, you know what? I really don't want those cookies anymore, but I'm going to make myself a sandwich.
Yeah.
So it's just, like I said, it's really extending that time from getting that urge, that thought, to actually giving into it or moving on.
I actually still use some of these tools that you're talking about now that I learned from you when you were going through and learning this in your own process. And I know one of the things you had told me that works really well for me is sometimes just changing your state of being. Like you're saying, like whether that means get your heart rate up, like drop down and do some push-ups, or like you said, or make some laps around, or go outside and get some fresh air, or take a hot bath, or a cold shower, or just changing your body's temperature or your heart rate, and then that's worked really well for me.
Yeah. And it is easier said than done, because a lot of times when we want to eat the food, we don't want to move. We don't want to exercise. We don't want to do anything even remotely close to healthy. And that's okay. That's why it's, finding something different, even if it is getting on YouTube and looking something up, maybe.
As long as you're not looking up that food source and seeing how people prepare it.
Exactly. Very true. Now that's different. Now the food porn and all of that, that can be very detrimental as well. And that's a whole other topic. But it's simply just changing where your focus is. And yes, the easiest way to do that is physical movement, any kind of physical movement. Now there's also this technique, and I know it sounds crazy, but I swear to you, this is probably the biggest game changer of them all. Is you fill a bowl with water and ice, or just cold water, and you put your face in it. I know it sounds crazy, but it literally changes so much, and that has been the biggest game changer for me. Now, I don't do it every time. Sometimes I'll just turn on really cold water. I'll put my hand in the water, but changing that physical state, even if it's not through physical movement, is the greatest way to kind of alleviate that thought. And like I said, alleviate that thought, because sometimes the thought's not going to fully go away.
So the one thing I will tell you that as we talk about this, this is behavior change 101. It's stimulus and response, and the more gap that you can put between stimulus and response, the more you're able to be at choice. When you give in, when you shorten that distance, it becomes the compulsion. When you increase that distance of time, it becomes the choice. And what you talk about is replacing that thought or doing away with that thought. I also think about it as being aware of that thought.
100%.
And you bring that awareness aspect out, is that okay? And it's why am I thinking this way? And do I really, getting yourself to run through those questions of, do I really need this? Is this something that I need, or is it something that I want? And I do have that question, is that, so, Rachel, our daughter, she talks about, our other daughter, she talks about that there are foods that are good for the body and some that are good for the soul.
Absolutely.
So how do you balance out that need versus want, and then also bring into that concept of not binging? So, I need a comfort food today. There's something going on. How do you walk that through that process?
So with that, it's going to tie back into the food rules. So, there's, when somebody's healing their relationship with food, we know that broccoli is healthier than a brownie. Like, yes, we know that. However, we cannot decipher from what we need or what we want when we're healing. Because if we, in that moment, want that brownie to heal our relationship with food, we need that brownie. Okay? Because if we don't allow ourselves and give ourselves full unconditional permission to eat that brownie, we're going to be filled with not necessarily regret, but also restriction. We're going to be filled with, dang it, I should have had that. It's the same concept of going out to eat. I'm going to get a salad. I really, really want the burger, but I'm just going to get the salad. Okay, cool. So you do get the salad, but you don't feel fulfilled. You don't feel like your need was truly met. And it doesn't matter if that need is your soul need, your health need. It doesn't matter what that need is. Your need was not met because that salad was not what you truly wanted. If you would have had that burger, you would have been satisfied. You wouldn't have gone home, ate the peanut butter jar, ate the leftovers, and then still ordered Uber Eats. You wouldn't have done that if you would have allowed yourself the burger. Now, the thing with healing your relationship with food is initially you're going to have all of the quote unquote bad foods. You're going to have all of the processed foods. You're going to have all of the comfort foods. But eventually, because you have pizza every single day for a month straight, you're no longer going to want the pizza. You know it's going to be there tomorrow and the next day. And then you're only going to have it when, you know what, I want a pizza. It's been 2 weeks. Oh, I want a pizza. That's fine because you know it's going to be there. And then over time, as you allow the power of specific foods to kind of subside, you're able to really listen to your cues and understand, what do I need right now? I'm feeling a little tired. What do I need? Maybe I do need some brown rice and some really good protein. Or maybe you are feeling a little sad. You know what? I feel like I want some ice cream. That's okay. But at this point, you're going to have a single serving of ice cream. You're not going to hold the entire pint of Ben & Jerry's. You know what I mean? You're going to be able to distinguish between what I truly want and need versus what I'm used to doing. You're used to eating all of it.
It's driving the power of choice and validating that over the power of compulsion.
Correct.
Which I think is that big distinction that you're drawing there.
Yeah.
And it's easier said than done. And I like that you talk about that. Like, it's easy to talk about it and it takes practice. It's like anything else. If you want to achieve it, you're going to fall down. You're going to get scuffed up along the way. You're going to make mistakes. And I think it's really important to say that because I know that it's the guilt and shame that drives us back towards the old behavior. Whereas, like you said, if I'm on this journey and I feel like I need the burger, I need to have the burger without the guilt and shame and know I'm making a conscious choice. And this is something I tell people, if you are going to make the conscious choice to go off plan and have a meal, please just enjoy it and be present for it. And, walk away from it going, hey, I made this choice and I'm okay with this choice. And that I feel like is a big differentiator in the mindset that we're working on. And
absolutely. And it's you have the power of choice. And with the power of choice, if foods don't align with, say, your digestive system. Say you are gluten sensitive, but you're going to go out to eat, or say your mother made this really delicious cake for you and she did put gluten in it. That's okay. You're making a choice. You know how you're going to feel, and that's okay. There's no right or wrong answer. Have the cake, enjoy it, be present, be thankful, and just know what comes with that, and there's, like I said, there's no right or wrong answer, but you have to remove the restriction that you place on yourself. And then also, if you do have a binge, because whenever you heal your relationship with food, it is messy. It is very messy. In fact, I want my clients who are healing their relationship with food, I want it to be messy. I want the first few months, first few weeks, everybody's journey is different. I want it to be messy. I want them to understand that, like, you can heal, but it's going to be a process. And the way I kind of explain healing your relationship with food is kind of like a shaken soda bottle, a shaken carbonated soda bottle. You've been shaking this thing for a long time. You've been building up this pressure. You've been, keeping restriction, and that's what builds the pressure, is the restriction, right? Now, you can do one of two things. Do you just want to drink that soda and enjoy it? Cool. Let off that top. Let it go everywhere. Let it get messy. Or do you want to ease your way into it? You can, how you slightly undo it, and you're like, come on. But you have to wait and be patient so it's not so messy. You can do that too. Now it's going to take longer for you to enjoy the soda if you do it that way. And that's why whenever my clients heal their relationship with food, I remove the scale. I remove the tracking. I remove the mirrors in the house. They purge their closets. Like, it's a complete no restriction, no body checking. Like, you can't do any of that. And yes, it's messy, but they heal so much quicker. However, not everybody's ready for that, and that's okay. For myself, I was one who kind of let it off a little at a time. I was a little bit more self-conscious. My body dysmorphia was really, really high, and I didn't want to be so messy so quick. And that's kind of what I did. But everybody's different. It's not a matter of if you're going to get there, but when. So.
I love that analogy. Mm-hmm. And that is the perfect analogy. That's exactly what it feels like. It's either or it's,
slow and steady. Yep. So, I mean, if there was one thing that I could have done, I wish I would have just let it get messy. My healing journey wouldn't have dragged on for, 10 plus years. I suffered with, disordered eating. Never was I clinically diagnosed, but I sure as heck could have been many times, and I wish I would have let it get messy. I wish I would have just gone all in, didn't place my value in the way my body looked. I didn't place my value in my placing on stage or, anything outside of that. So.
Yeah, what's really interesting about this conversation and what you're bringing back for me is, because my journey was similar, and I'll just share a little bit about what started to create my disordered eating is my very first coach, the way he did his structure is he did like a binge meal, basically. It was like once a week I could have a free meal, anything I wanted, and the rest of the week was very, very restrictive. It was a meal plan, same thing every day. Low calories. I was hungry all week long. And so all I would think about, I got 45 minutes for that meal and I could eat anything I wanted. So I got to a point where I would line up the food, start the timer for 45 minutes and literally binge for 45 minutes. So I taught myself to do this. And it was a very hard thing to come back from because I had this feast or famine mentality of I need to either feel like I'm starving myself or after these binge meals, I was so uncomfortable. I would look forward to it all week long. Then I would eat this food and then I would just lay there and feel miserable. And it was just like, what am I doing to myself? And it took me several years to really kind of get back to a good, healthy place with food. And I do think learning macros and knowing that I can swap out foods and things like that helped a lot. And then eventually learning to be intuitive with food and that kind of thing. But I do feel like, we can create we can create our own issues with food, but it definitely drove me to want to coach. And this is funny because there came a point where I told Papa Bear over here. I said, I don't think I want to do competition coaching anymore because I see what it's doing with people's relationships with food. And at that time, I didn't know that there could be something different and better. And, as I started to discover tools to help people be a little bit more balanced in their approach, that's where I got excited about bringing that into the competition world. Now, you've taken it to a whole new level, and I've learned a ton from you in terms of how do we help people not go there in the first place. But if they're already there, because a lot of people come into the competition world desiring that because they already have some issues around food, then how do we help people then shift out of that and into something else? So I love that, you talk about it's not going to just be this clean cut, here, just follow step 1, 2, 3, and boom, you're there. It could be messy. There's going to be times where you fall back into those old habits. There's going to be moments that are really, really difficult. And, I think that's one of the biggest things people can take away from this is if they're healing their relationship, to be kind to themselves, to be patient with themselves, because it is that mentality of us beating ourselves up that drives us back into those old
Absolutely.
patterns.
And it's a spiral. It's a never ending spiral. It's insanity. Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. If you say yeah, you cheated on your diet, okay, and you associate that with shame and guilt, you then tell yourself, well, screw it, I already messed up, I'm going to keep going. And those negative thoughts, those negative reinforcements only reinforces that overeating, binge eating behavior, and that's something we have to really be cautious and conscious about, are the things that we tell ourselves. I like to say, fake it till you make it, although it's not faking it if that's your true heart desire. A lot of times, if you binge eat, it does not mean you are a binge eater. It doesn't matter if I suffered with binge eating for 10 years. I am never going to call myself a binge eater because, one, I'm not going to identify with that. That's not what I did as a child. I wasn't a binge eater. This is simply a habit that I created. And if I was to tell myself I am a binge eater, I'm only reinforcing this is who I am. No, it's not. It's absolutely not. So I am going to tell myself all the feelings I want to feel. I feel free of food. I eat when I'm hungry. I stop when I'm full. I eat what I want, when I want, how I want, where I want, how much I want, all of it, and I tell myself these things because that's the truth. Even if I may not be practicing that truth right away, it's the power of thoughts that create the actions we do. Thoughts create feelings, feelings create actions. So if you are telling yourself, I feel good, I'm happy, I'm content, all of these things, it will translate to a feeling. And eventually the feeling will translate into an emotion, into an action. And the same thing goes for, our eating habits, everything else in life. Not just our eating, but anything in life. If you tell yourself, I'm confident, even if you are probably feeling the most insecure you've ever felt, that's okay. Continue to tell yourself, I'm confident, I'm confident, I'm confident, because eventually you're going to be like, I kind of feel a little confident, and then you're going to walk like you're confident. So
I love that. Will you share a little bit? You talked about the breathing technique.
Yes.
I'd love for you to share that.
Yes. So with the breathing technique, there's actually a specific one that I have. Let me just pull it up to share with you guys. So what you're going to do, it's 3, you could do it 3 to 5 rounds. Typically you're going to do 10 quick inhales by 5 rounds of 5-second inhalations and 5-second exhalations. So what that looks like, it's a little silly, but what it does is you can't think about food while doing this. So you're just going to sit there, stand there, whatever you want. You're going to breathe in quickly 10 times like that. And then you're going to completely calm your nervous system and go 5 inhale, 5 exhale. And then you're going to inhale, exhale. And you could do the inhale, exhale 3 to 5 times. If you can't do the full 10 inhalations quickly, you can do 5. You can stop when you want, because, with breath work, there are some things you can get lightheaded and so forth. But again, this is literally changing what you're thinking about, changing your state of being. But you'll do that for 3 to 5 rounds, and there's no right or wrong. You could inhale as many times as you want. If you only want to do the quick inhale, if you only want to do the slower inhale, exhale, you totally can. But what those techniques does is, again, it removes that thought from in your head and allows you to really, you don't even think about nothing when you're doing this because you're focused on your breath. You're not even focused on thought. And then eventually, once you're done with that technique, you might not even think about food. You might have already been walking out of the room because you went and you wanted to go get some water or something. So, yeah, pretty simple.
And I feel like you could use that for so many things. I was watching a podcast yesterday, and he was talking about the power of your thoughts and things like that, and how we might get fixated on something, and but if somebody walked in waving a gun in the air, all of a sudden whatever that thought was
Absolutely.
that was dominating our mind would be gone. So that's kind of the same kind of idea is if we just sit in, wallow in whatever that that thought is that's not serving us, rather than creating a different state or a different focus for our brain, then all of a sudden now we start becoming free of that thought.
Exactly. And the same applies for, say you are having a bad body day and you're out at the store or you're out at Ross and you see all the mirrors and you walk by, you check yourself and you're like, oh God, I look terrible. Take a moment, really reevaluate, what purpose is that serving me? What purpose is it serving me to tell myself I look terrible, I look nasty and disgusting? What purpose is that serving you? You clearly don't want to feel that way. Nobody wants to feel that way. But you don't understand that you have a choice to feel otherwise. And again, that's when the power of choice is going to come in, and you can be like, you definitely still acknowledge, okay, I just had this feeling, my feeling is, or my thought is valid, but I don't have to let this thought of feeling or this thought of being disgusted translate into feeling disgusted, and because if you feel disgusted, how are you going to present yourself to the outside world? You have control over that. And again, it's easier said than done, but I promise you, the more you start practicing reframing those thoughts and not soaking in them, really not allowing yourself to bathe in these negative thoughts, that's when you actually can change how you feel and present in the actions that follow.
That's awesome.
So I want to talk about a situation that I think presents a lot with relationship with food, because so many people have coupled food and fun, and especially family or events with that. So what is the guidance for somebody who is attending, and I know this never comes up, right? It comes up all the time, of a person attending a family event and being presented with both, and I mean, I think there's levels of this, right? It's different for a person on prep, preparing for a contest, versus somebody who's just in their improvement season, or a lifestyle athlete who's working to improve. But what's the coaching there for somebody who presents at a family event and is then confronted with these temptations, this pressure, whether it be social or internal?
Yep.
What's the guidance there?
Well, the guidance there that you do not have to please anybody. You do not have to feel bad for turning food down. You don't have to feel bad for eating the food. There's no right or wrong. If you want to go and you want to enjoy the food, absolutely enjoy the food. If you want to go and you just don't want to eat the food, you don't have to explain yourself. Set guidelines too. That's what I recommend. If you go to a family event, whatever it is, and people start asking you questions, why aren't you eating? Why are you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? Be like, you know what? I really would prefer if we don't discuss diet or body right now, but I would love to hear about your new dog. Change the topic. You do not, nobody, you don't owe anybody any explanation of your choices. You need to know and be set in what you believe and what you feel. And if that means eating the food or not eating the food, that is up to you. You do not owe anybody an explanation. And that's the way I recommend to do it. Now, for those that are healing their relationship with food, let's not ask what food's going to be there. Let's maybe ask what family's coming. Talk about what family's coming. Maybe you go and you do see all the yummy food, enjoy it. Allow yourself to enjoy the food. And if you're going to eat the food, it goes back to something that you said, Jami, enjoy the food. If you're going to eat it, enjoy it. Doesn't matter if it's the broccoli or if it's the cupcakes. Sit there, enjoy the food. taste the food. What is the texture? What is the, does it melt in your mouth? Like, that's okay. You can enjoy the food. But again, don't place any rules on yourself either going in. So don't tell yourself, when I go, I'm not going to eat. I'm only going to eat the healthy food. I'm going to eat protein before I go to make sure I'm full. No. No rules. You're not going for the food. So why are you thinking about the food? Don't think about the food. Think about the people there.
You said something that really hit me close on that, is that I was thinking about, I'll just call it the cinnamon roll effect, because whenever we fly into Pittsburgh, there's a cinnamon roll place that's right outside the gate that we always seem to land at, and I always hit that smell, and that smell then just catalyzes my thought, initiates this thought of, oh wow, that would taste really good. And then I remember going back to every time I have indulged, and it just has not tasted as it fit within my memory. So as you talk about taste the texture, really get into the texture, get into those things, it helps to build that process of, is this really what I thought it was going to be? Does this really taste like I was thinking it was going to take? Is this it taste? I love that, Angela. That's very helpful.
And there's no right or wrong answer. The food can taste absolutely delicious and just as you expected it, if not better, or it could not. And there's no right or wrong. But again, it goes back to, if that food tasted just as delicious, great. That means next time you have it, you know what to expect.
And so, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to say, I really love that approach, because the idea is that you're being present in the moment. And I think that, with my experience with binge eating, I know that when I have had those episodes that I literally, Greg would even say, like, I looked like a different person. Like, my eyes would glaze over. Like, I would completely check out. I wasn't being present. I wasn't even tasting the food. It was just like, more. I need more. I need to feel more full. And so what you're saying makes so much sense, because if instead I'm slowing it down, I'm actually tasting the food, I'm being present. And maybe I'm observing that maybe it wasn't as good as I really remembered. And I think that does happen more frequently than not when we stop. Or it could be, like you said, it could be like, wow, this is just as good as I expected. Wow, I'm looking forward to the next time I get to have it. I've gotten myself in the habit, when we do have like a big meal together, is I'll just take a little bit of each thing and taste it and kind of see what I like, and maybe go back for a little bit more of the things that I like. And then if something I'm not as crazy about, I can leave it on my plate. I don't have to finish it. That for me was huge growth, because I definitely came from that mentality of, you can't leave anything on your plate and things like that, which is why initially I started with putting little things on my plate, because I didn't want to feel that, and then graduated into, it's okay if there's still something on my plate, and I'm actually proud of that if I can walk away from that.
Yes, exactly. And it's I can't stress enough how important it is to just allow yourself to eat the food. And that's the thing. It's just, so often do we just hold so much shame and guilt specifically over certain foods, and it's like, yes, we know broccoli is healthier than cupcakes. I get it. But whenever you tell yourself you're a bad person because you have the cake, you're fat, you're disgusting, you're gross, you have no self-control, no willpower, that's when, again, it goes back to feeding into those negative thoughts over and over. Well, I'm disgusting anyways. I already ate the cupcake, so let me just go raid the pantry and have the rest of the peanut butter and the cookies and the cake with it, and it's a never-ending cycle.
That's where guilt becomes shame.
Absolutely.
Guilt for doing something that you had set a boundary about not doing, and the shame comes in with the negative self-worth.
Yeah. And one thing I like to say, just because I know we're running up on time, is, if you were looking at your 12-year-old self, maybe your 8-year-old self, right, and she overate because she had a really tough day at work, would you tell her she's disgusting, she's gross, she's, worthless because she overate that? No. You would give her love, you would give her grace, you would give her compassion and understanding, and tell her, you know what, it's okay you ate that. It's okay. And let's figure out how we can navigate through this. When you have another bad day, let's see what else that'll make you feel better longer. What other coping techniques are there out there? Because there's many. Not saying food is completely never can be used as coping, because it is, and it's valid sometimes, absolutely. But again, it goes back to giving the love, the grace, compassion, and understanding above all. Because if you overeat and you tell yourself, you know what, that's okay. That's okay. maybe I did, I don't like to say I made a mistake, but maybe I don't want to choose that next time. But that's all right. I did this time. I'm going to accept it. I'm going to move on, and I'm going to try again.
I made a choice. I'm going to make a different choice.
Exactly.
And you had put something in your notes about that. This is a habit that you have formed, and it's probably not a habit that you've consciously formed. I don't think people consciously form the habit that I want to binge, or I want to overeat, or do any of those things. But now, once you've identified that as a habit, well, you can form a new habit, and you can do so consciously.
Yes, absolutely. And the last thing I want to say is, if you're suffering with any kind of disordered eating or anything of that sort, is you're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. You've just created this new habit, this new pathway, and you were only trying to protect yourself. You were only trying to keep yourself to survive. That was what your body did to survive. That's what your body did to try and pull you out of that depression you were feeling, that anxiety, that overwhelm. And thank yourself for trying to protect yourself. But as you know, it doesn't make you feel good the next day. So let's reevaluate some things. Let's see what we can maybe try to do next time.
I love that kindness approach of, it served me up until now. It helped me survive whatever it was that I had to get through to get to this point. Now I get to make some different choices for myself. That's beautiful.
Exactly.
And I admire so much your journey, and I feel very honored to be part of it and to get to learn from you. I think we've learned from each other through the years, and it's been amazing. And I appreciate you coming here and sharing this, because I do think it's going to get me all emotional. I do really think so many people are going to identify and relate with this. And I know there's so much more we could talk about on this topic, and I know we'll have you back. But thanks for being here and sharing your heart and all that you've learned.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So inspired was your check-in word. What's the checkout word?
So many emotions. Oh my goodness.
Well, I'll tell you what. We normally say a checkout word. You can pick several if you'd like.
I just am so hopeful and so excited for people to hear this podcast, because I wish when I was going through my journey that I had this type of information. I wish I had this sooner. I wish I truly believed that I had the power of choice to heal, and I want people to be hopeful. I'm hopeful for them, and I'm so excited that they know that they're going to know that they can do this.
Is that the one thing, Angela? What's the one thing you want people? If we talk about this all the time with presentations, right? What do you want people to walk away with? So hope is a great thing. Yep. What is that one thing you want people to walk away with? I
want them to know that there is healing, that there is freedom, that, again, going back, they are not broken, and they can do this.
Awesome. That's powerful.
Excellent.
Well, thanks for joining us today. And remember the 3 B's: be safe, be good to each other, and be good to yourself.
Thank you for tuning in to FitBody Lifestyle. We hope today's episode has left you feeling motivated and equipped to tackle your fitness goals, business challenges, and the daily dance of life. Remember to value progress over perfection. Life's tough enough alone. Find the chosen family around you to help you along the way.
If you enjoyed today's episode, we'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite streaming platform. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at FitBodyFusion.